the increasing levels of carbon dioxide and other pollutants. The current cycle of global warming is changing the rhythms of the climate which all living things have come to rely upon.
Whether global warming is happening or not has been a debatable topic for as long as anyone can remember. But is it?
Global warming is happening, and it indeed is accelerated by humans.
There are so many pieces of evidence that prove global warming is a fact.
According to James McCarthy, a professor at Harvard University, ideas of how the climate works can be tested by historical data and testing projections of models against observations.
Does carbon dioxide affect temperature?
Yes, according to James McCarthy, the professor of biological oceanography at Harvard University, the concept was first demonstrated in 1859. He also stated that relationship is known well by scientists and can easily be demonstrated in any laboratory. Earth has never been a stable climate. In fact, the climate has been more stable currently. However, humans are pushing the temperatures 100 times the normal. According to climate.gov, major greenhouse gases concentrations, including carbon dioxide, continued to rise in 2012. Worldwide, 2012 was among the warmest years on record, according to the 2012 State of Climate Report. Humans are pouring carbon dioxide into the atmosphere much faster than plants and oceans can absorb it. According to NationalGeographic.com, at this rate, future decades will pay home to climate that has not been seen in more than 1,000,000 years.
Sea levels have risen and retreated over time, but in the last half-century, sea levels have begun to rise again. But why is this? Does it have to do with global warming?
Yes, this has a lot to do with global warming. According to climate.gov, globally, sea level has been increased at an average rate of 3.2 millimeters per year over the past 2 decades. Glaciers are frozen water packed together, and when it melts, the ice turns into water and adds lots of volume to the sea. One way we know that global warming is happening is from the sea levels rising, proving that glaciers are melting in the seas. According to National Geographic, glaciers and mountain snows are rapidly melting. For example, Montana's Glacier National Park only has 27 left, unlike in the 1910 park it contained of 150 glaciers. Data from NASA's Gravity, Recovery, and Climate Experiment show that Greenland lost 150 to 250 cubic kilometers of ice per year between 2002 and 2006, while Antarctica lost about 152 cubic kilometers of ice between 2002 and 2005.
Is the 500-year flood that we had in Colorado a part of global warming?
Here in Colorado, we just experienced what was called a 500-year flood. With global warming, the more often these catastrophic weather events will happen. For instance, instead of a 500-year flood, it might become a 30-year flood if global warming keeps accelerating at its current rate, according to Michael McCracken. With more threats of weather-related disasters comes water shortages, urban heat waves, etc. According to James McCarthy at Harvard University, today all weather is affected by climate change. With climate change, things like precipitation will become much more present. In addition, forests will become more dry and allow tree-eating bugs to take over. Also, according to Michael McCracken, with all the sea levels rising, storms are coming in worse than ever before. Today, all weather is affected by climate change, and with climate change, precipitation much more present. In addition, Earth is becoming more dry and is allowing tree-eating bugs to take over. Greater threats of weather are water shortages and urban heat waves. The temperature is changing one way or another due to climate change. Is this global warming?
Yes, the temperature is definitely changing, especially based on the fact that there used to be a glacier covering half the United States and now there isn't. Shows how glaciers are suitable for our warming climate. This proves that something must have caused it to melt. Scientists believe that this is a victim of increasing temperatures. Another example is the Antarctic temperatures. Recent temperature recordings on the Antarctic Peninsula show a 3°C temperature increase since the late 1950s. This is known to be one of the largest warming signals on Earth, according to worldwideinstitute.org. According to James McCarthy, past climate cycles would lead to the conjecture that in the next 100,000 years, the Earth will slowly cool, but human activities are now shooting temperature the other direction, perhaps 100 times faster than the past natural warming and cooling trends. For example, Colorado once used to be tropical, but there also used to be glaciers. This shows that there are patterns in the climate, but unfortunately now, the warming is accelerated by humans. Also, he mentioned that Greenland is warmer than it was when the Vikings were there, which signals us to believe that part of the world is becoming warmer as well.
All this information provides evidence that global warming is happening.
We sat down with former chief scientist of the climate change programs at the Climate Institute in Washington, D.C., Michael McCracken, to discuss his views on climate change.
Can you explain to us where you work and what you do?
Well, I'm actually retired and I'm volunteering full-time with the Climate Institute. So the Climate Institute is a small, non-governmental organization of people who are interested in making something happen before one gets to having to do something with Congress and getting Congress to pass a law. A lot of people ask that question and say, do you believe in global warming? Well, scientists aren't supposed to believe anything. They're supposed to look at the evidence and come up with the most reasonable explanation of what's happening. So we look at the evidence, and when you look at, there's two ways we look at the evidence. The first part is we're looking at it to see if things are changing. And then the second part is trying to figure out what's causing it. So it's just like the crime shows on television. You figure out if a crime has occurred, and then you figure out who did it.
Yeah.
Most likely to do it. And so you look at the evidence. And so if you look at the evidence about whether the world is changing, there's a lot of evidence that the world is changing. The temperature is getting warmer, sea ice is melting back, birds and other fish species are sort of moving more poleward, changing their ranges. So glaciers are melting, sea levels rising. There's a lot of different evidence. So the first part is to figure out if it's changing. And there's pretty good agreement that it's changing. The question is, what's doing it? And so the way you do it in a crime show, it's the same thing with science. You look for all the possible causes that could be doing it. So could it be that the sun is getting hotter and warmer? Could it be that volcanoes are changing? Could it be that we're putting things in the atmosphere? Could it be that you're clearing the land and that's changing what happens on what the temperature is? And so for each of these, you then try and figure out what is the fingerprint of change, just like, or the DNA signal, if you want, of change. So if it were solar radiation, and the sun were getting hotter and putting out more radiation, you'd expect not only the Earth's surface to be warming, but you'd expect the upper atmosphere, the stratosphere, to be warming because there'd be more absorption up there. If there's volcanoes, that actually tends to make the surface.
In addition to Michael, we also visited Dr. Ted Scamboza at CU Boulder's National Snow and Ice Data Center. He is the lead scientist at NCIDC, and he specializes in glaciology, remote sensing, geochemistry, and planetary science. Ted discussed his views and showed us around the data center.
But more, how serious will it be? Where do we have to be paying attention the most in order to prepare or adjust or be aware that things are going to change? One of the main questions is sea level rise. Another one is how changes in, say, the polar regions will affect the climate in the United States, in Europe, and Russia, and all the places where people live. To answer your question the way you said it, I'd be on the side that says that people have changed the atmosphere through fossil fuel burning and some other activities, and that change means that the atmosphere traps heat, and more heat than it used to, and that it's warming up the planet. And so we're seeing big changes in the poles, not big changes yet in places like the United States, but that it will happen, and it is happening, and if you go to the right places, it's undeniable that things are different now than they were a century ago.
We also chatted with John Hart over email, who is a professor of ecosystem sciences at the University of California in Berkeley. He gave us some really useful information.
We also chatted with James McCarthy over email, who is a professor of biological oceanography at Harvard University, and he gave us some of his thorough and extremely useful information.
Some people say that global warming is not happening or is not human caused, but they are very wrong.
Some people say that temperatures are actually cooling, but according to climate.gov, a credible source provided to us by James McCarthy, the cooling that occurred was actually caused by La Niña. La Niña is produced by cooler surface water temperatures in the Pacific Ocean and is credited with upsetting climate patterns around the world. This makes the climate change work in unnatural ways.
Some people think this is some sort of temperature change and Earth gets cooled and warm, therefore saying that it is not human caused. They suggest it's Mother Nature doing her job. But they are wrong. Earth does go through climate cycles, but the last half of a century has been unusual thanks to humans. According to James McCarthy, the climate has never been stable, but right now it is as stable as it will ever be. Currently, human activities are shooting the climate warmer rather than cooler, which naturally should happen based on history. But from greenhouse gas emissions along with other man-made things, the climate is now warming unusually.
Some people say that humans can't affect the huge Earth, but when CFCs destroyed the ozone above Antarctica, leaving a huge hole, it showed that us humans can affect Earth's environment. Therefore, we have affected the Earth before, and we can do it again.
So the real question is there more climate change ahead of us? And what actions can we take that will positively affect us?
Based on the views of Michael McCracken and James McCarthy, there is more climate change ahead of us. But there are ways to prevent this. 1. Work on decarbonizing our atmosphere. This could easily be done by lessening the use of fossil fuels. We could begin by converting biofuels like ethanol. In addition, we could use more renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, tidal, etc. Also creating clean coal factories with clean coal technology. 2. Write to the government. Start with letters to your local government, to the mayor, community boards. Then go to the state legislature. Then move national. Write to Congress, to President Obama. Among these actions, there's a program called EASY. Ted Scambos, John Hart, Michael McCracken, and James McCarthy would all agree that writing letters is very important.
EASY was put together by a group of scientists to help prevent global warming. Each letter stands for a different action. The E in EASY stands for energy efficiency. This would be achieved by the modifications to household appliances, like refrigerators, to make them more energy efficient. The A stands for automobile efficiency. Automobile efficiency is the use of things like ethanol, biofuels, and hybrid cars in order to reduce the carbon dioxide emissions in the atmosphere. The S stands for solar, wind, and geothermal technology. In other words, this is just discussing how we need to use more renewable energy like solar, wind, geothermal, nuclear, hydro, tidal, and biomass. Finally, the Y stands for your part of the solution. This goes along with writing to your government and making people around you more aware of global warming. The whole idea of EASY is to get more people aware of global warming and provide solutions to prevent it.
In conclusion, global warming is a fact and is being accelerated by humans. Based on tons of evidence from credible sources, you can positively conclude that global warming is a fact. With the current rates of global warming, we are headed for extreme climate change by late this century that has not been seen for more than 1 million years. With that, there are things we can do to help prevent such situations and need to do whatever it takes to save our planet from what is soon to come. Wait, are we going?
Yeah, we were.
Work on decarbonizing our atmosphere. Good try. She doesn't even go here. Is butter a carb?